Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do a first for me. I am going to do like a cook along with me video. Basically what I'm going to do is I have this cookbook I got from Amazon. I ordered several of the older Weight Watchers cookbooks because even though the points may not be the same, the recipes are still compatible with the Weight Watchers program. You would just need to take the nutrition information that's always at the bottom of Weight Watchers recipes down here and enter it into the points calculator and come up with the points value. What I generally do is go to Weight Watchers online and create a recipe and just add the recipe in there, and it will calculate the points for you, and then save the recipe, and you can save it as a favorite, and so it's easier to plan your meals out and to log in your points. So I'm also going to be converting these recipes to be gluten-free because I have to eat gluten-free due to celiac disease, but I will follow along with the recipe and let you know what it says to do if you're not gluten-free, and then I'll show you what I do to make it gluten-free for me. And I've marked several recipes in this book, and then I have another big book of it's Weight Watchers What to Cook Now. I have some recipes I've picked out in there, so I will be doing this series and you can follow along if you like and get some ideas for your family, because even though these are Weight Watchers recipes, I find that they're really tasty, and that if I'm cooking these recipes and somebody's like, oh, what are you cooking? I don't tell them it's a Weight Watchers recipe, and they'll eat it. And it's really just smart cooking, staying away from excessive oils, excessive fats, and choosing wisely. And the taste is always there. The flavor is always there. So don't be afraid to try these recipes out with your family. I think they would enjoy, especially the one we're going to make today. I just think it's a really good recipe that anybody would enjoy if they like onions and pork chops. So today we're going to do the skillet pork chops with onion gravy. I hope you stick around and let's get into making this recipe. So this is the Weight Watchers 50th anniversary cookbook. It's got 280 recipes in it, and it has the Weight Watchers 360 points plus values for the plan that was out when this book was published. So what we're going to do today is convert a recipe to the current Freestyle points value and cook the recipe, and I'm going to show you the substitutions I have to make it gluten-free, but then also let you know what the regular recipe is too. So we're going to do the skillet pork chops with onion gravy, and there's the picture of it. I'm really bummed because I left the onions at home. I am doing this at my son's house while I'm babysitting, so I brought everything over to cook the recipe, and then now I'm realizing I forgot the onions and they don't have any. So I'm going to substitute onion powder. It's not going to be the same. It'll still be good. It'll still have a lot of flavor, but I will miss the onions for sure. And then if I like the flavors, then next time I'll make sure I have the onions. So this serves 6 people. Hey guys, I just wanted to jump on here for a second and clarify something. This recipe states that you need 4 6-ounce pork chops, but it says it serves 6, and that 1 serving is 1 pork chop with a 1/4 cup of sauce. So I do believe that they have switched that, and it should be 6 4-ounce chops. So I wanted to clarify that because when I entered the recipe into the Weight Watchers program so that I could see what the new points value would be, I entered it as 6 4-ounce chops. And so the new points value is 5 instead of 6 as this recipe originally was. So I just wanted to make that clarification for you. You're going to need 4 You're going to need 4 6-ounce bone-in pork loin chops trimmed, and then salt, pepper, olive oil, 2 sweet onions, which we don't have, reduced sodium chicken broth. The only chicken broth I had was this that I got from the Dollar Tree. It's gluten-free, but it is not low sodium. I have put the chicken broth in the Weight Watchers calculator, and it really doesn't make a difference in points value whether you use the low sodium or not. So it really only matters if you're following a low sodium diet or prefer to have less salt in your dishes. Then 2 garlic cloves, 2 teaspoons of all-purpose flour, and since I'm gluten-free, I usually thicken sauces with cornstarch or my gluten-free flour blend, which I don't have with me here, so I'm going to use the cornstarch. And then it calls for a teaspoon of whole grain mustard, and a teaspoon of whole grain Dijon mustard. Well, I couldn't find that. I found stone ground mustard and Dijon mustard, so I think I'm going to combine the two. I don't know if it'll make that much difference, but that's what I'm going to do. And then it calls for a tablespoon of chopped fresh thyme. I don't cook with fresh herbs often. They're expensive I live in a smaller town, and they're just expensive to buy. And if I only use them for one dish, it just really makes the cost of the dish go up. So I usually either skip it or I use dried. So the first thing we're going to have to do, it says, is sprinkle the chops with salt and pepper. Then heat a large nonstick skillet over medium heat. Swirl in the oil and the chops and cook, turning occasionally until brown, about 5 minutes, and then transfer to a plate. So I'm going to put the camera on the tripod and get going on that. Okay, seasoned one side in the styrofoam tray. Then I put the seasoned side down in the pan on top of the oil that I'd spread around on the pan. If you hear that noise, that's Gus. He's not happy right now. He wants me to play with him, I think. So then once I got them in the pan, I then put salt and pepper on the other side. I did not use the measurements they have in the cookbook. Salt and pepper to each side as I felt like it needed it. And then I'm just going to let this brown. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit. And I'll be back. Okay, so while the chops are browning, I'm going to mince the 2 cloves of garlic. And really, if you don't want to fool with doing this, you can buy the minced garlic in a jar, or you could even use garlic powder. I've done that before too. With me, it just depends on how I feel at the moment that I'm cooking as to which direction I go. Sometimes I feel like doing it exactly like the recipe says, and then other times I take a few shortcuts. Okay, so I can smell that the chops are getting brown. So I'm going to flip them. And I only added half of the oil when I first started, so now I'm going to add just a little bit more oil to the pan. And I'm not big on measuring, even on Weight Watchers. I just like to eye it. But I've cooked for many years, so I sort of know what a teaspoon looks like. I also do not trim the chops. I'm not in the habit of doing that, so that's a mistake on my part. So when I go to eat this, I can trim it off and not eat it. So it will add a little bit of fat to your intake for the day. I'm going to cut a little piece right here so this one will lay more flat. Okay, so I've taken the pork chops out. They're nice and brown, and I'm going to set those aside. The next part is you're supposed to add a 1/4 cup of the chicken broth to the skillet with the onions and the garlic and bring to a boil. And then you're supposed to cook them for 12 to 15 minutes. But we're going to skip that step because I don't have the onions. So then it says after you cook them for 12 to 15 minutes, you're going to sprinkle them with the flour and cook, stirring constantly for a minute. Then you're going to add the broth. So what they're doing is making a sauce. I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and pour my chicken broth. First, I'm going to put the garlic in. And I didn't clean the pan or anything. I'm just going to put the garlic in and stir it around for about 30 seconds just to get the flavor released and soften it a little bit. It smells really good. And then I am going to add a cup of the chicken broth because a 1/4 cup of the broth was supposed to be used with the onions, so it would have cooked down while cooking the onions. And I can always add a little bit more if I need to. So I am going to measure this. And I'm going to pour that in. And when I do that, that's going to release all that flavor in the bottom of the skillet. Then I'm supposed to add the mustard and the thyme. I'm also going to add the onion powder at this time. And I probably added about a 1/2 teaspoon. And then for the thyme, I'm going to do a teaspoon. Because basically it's calling for a tablespoon of fresh thyme. So when you're using dried, you need to find a conversion online to see how much to use. But it's usually about a teaspoon to a tablespoon. And I'm just going to use my hand to estimate it. So now I'm going to make a slurry with the cornstarch because I don't have my gluten-free flour and I need to thicken this sauce. So I'm going to take it called for 2 teaspoons. So do that. So I added cold water to this to make like a loose slurry. And I'm going to stir that into the sauce. And I've got my heat turned down to about between low and medium. So now I need to add the mustard. I need a teaspoon of whole grain Dijon. So I'm going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of each one of these. And again, I'm not going to measure. And I love mustard, so if I go a little overboard, I'm sure I'll be okay with it. But you do whatever you feel comfortable with in the kitchen. If you like measuring, that is the best way to cook. But if you like to freestyle, then that's fine too. So I am just going to let this simmer and stir it. I want to get this mustard incorporated really well. And then I'll stir it occasionally as it thickens up. Okay, so it's starting to bubble up and thicken, so I'm going to add the pork chops and any of the juices that accumulated on the plate. I'm going to add that back in here. This smells heavenly. Oh my goodness. And I'm going to flip these so the sauce is on all sides. So it says to simmer for another 2 to 3 minutes until the chops are heated thoroughly. Okay, so there is the finished product. I wish you guys could smell it. It smells absolutely divine. I am going to take one and put it on a plate and take a bite and see what I think. So I'll let you know. Okay, so I can't wait to taste this. It was so easy to make and it smells so good. The pork chop's really tender. It has a lot of flavor. If you love garlic, you would definitely enjoy this. And I think the onions would have just been a nice extra to have. They would have imparted even more flavor, but it was fine without it. Of course, I did add some onion powder. So yeah, that's a keeper recipe for me. Number one, it was easy to make. Number two, it is a Weight Watchers recipe if I trim the fat off next time. And it has flavors that I love. So I'm going to divide this up into meal prep dishes. My sides will either be brown rice or mashed potatoes, one of the two. Because I'm a Southern girl, I love to have a starch with my meal. And then I will probably have sauerkraut. And another vegetable I might choose would be broccoli or green beans and even carrots. So that wraps up the video for today, and join me next time when I bring another recipe that I'm going to convert. So you can come along and cook with me and see if you can pick up a new recipe for your family to enjoy. Until next time, bye-bye.